Welcome back, everybody. I am Jesse, and today I am joined by a special guest. I have Devin from Canvas Kite Designs with me, and we're going to go through their lineup of kites and talk a little bit about their development and what's coming out in 2023. So, Devin from Canvas. So we're going to talk about the line as it stands and what's coming new in 2023. And I think we're going to start with the Crux.
Yes.
So tell me about the Crux. I know it's the freestyle kite, and it's big for a freestyle kite by traditional standards.
Yeah. She's present.
We'll just pick that up a bit so it can...
So this is the ultralight. The Crux is basically the wild child of the line. We wanted something that's predictable, but also just kind of fun. If you're learning some tricks, you might find yourself accidentally turning one thing that you were kind of going for into something else, and then saying, how did that happen? And having something that'll kind of enable you to explore a little bit more. We call it the Bellatrix Lestrange of kites, because she can be a little feisty sometimes, but that's the fun of it. So it's kind of our troubled middle child, if you will. So this is the ultralight. It is all in 3 PTs. It's got a 200 spine, and the standard and kind of sort of the strong, they kind of just go up in increments, so the standard's all 5s, etc. Just got a small reverse turbo bridle, and that's really about it. Crux is geared towards having a very deep backflip and loves combinations. So if you're looking to kind of go down that route of kind of getting to that next step of, okay, I have all the tricks, but now I want to string them together, this is probably your bird. On our line, at least. There's plenty of other birds out there that will do the same thing. That's kind of it. This is a custom one. This was the first ultralight that was ever done. That was sewn by John. And it just kind of resides in my bag. So that's the ultralight.
Very cool. So standard next?
Yeah, sure.
Cool. So I'm going to step aside, and he's going to keep talking. I'm going to move this one out of our way.
Same bird, stock standard sail. So on every kite in the Canvas line, we have this kind of thicker bridle line. Red is 200 pound, and that will always be on standard kites. So again, red is 200. The fluorescent yellow on the ultralight Crux is 150. We are considering going down one and getting maybe a black or a blue for a 100. But that's kind of how you'll know, what our kites are. So we do use the heavier leading edge material on both the ultralight and the standard. So if you are going up to someone, maybe you don't or haven't had experience with a Crux, you can tell what model it is based on the bridle line color, and that will be consistent throughout CKD's existence.
For the most part, because I think you color coordinated my bridles on the red kites.
Except for ignore everything about Jesse. It's just red everywhere. Everywhere is red. Okay, and the super ultralight that I'm going to show you, but I guess I just gave that away. But that has some old, very light bridle line that we had laying around.
We'll talk about that in a second for sure.
Yeah, so this is the standard, all 5 PTs, 300 spine, same deal. Reverse turbo leg is just a little bit bigger than the other. Same stuff, higher wind.
And if I can just point out a couple of things too. Some of the things I really like on the whole line is the really nice heavy noses and pretty standard these days, the cable grommet, yo-yo stops, and screw back standoff fittings that just sort of make the kite very solid and resilient, beach flying, park. I think one of yours met a grill at some point, and
the first prototype Crux, I think. It was all brown. You can probably find it on Facebook, brown and purple. Might have run that sucker into a grill.
There's some really good video when. It's a really good video when these kites came out of you using the flexibility to load it and kind of bounce it in and out of the air.
Yeah.
The Crux really does some fun stuff because of how much recoil is in it.
Yeah.
But it's so well supported. Like, there's never a fragile feeling from it.
Yeah, that was kind of the point. For those of you who don't know what a bounce is, or I've also heard it called a bouncing rumble, instead of landing on the tip, you're actually coming down. You're going to go into a TAS machine. If you don't know what a TAS machine is, I'll have Jesse link that in the description.
Definitely.
You come down in a turn, and you actually bounce the kite this bends, the lower leading edge, and you bounce it off the lower spreader fitting, off the ground. And as you bounce it off the ground, it goes into that half axle and then it tazzes. The look of the kite when being bounced is not the most settling thing.
It's really pretty wild to see the wingtip roll under almost entirely.
Yeah, and the spine will flex drastically. But to have a kite that will do that and have, spreaders placed in such a way that, you can work with that kind of stuff is fun. I wouldn't recommend bouncing all the time, or your wallet will hate you. But, the breakage rate on the Crux is very low for this stuff. I don't think I've ever broken a lower leading edge, bouncing even in upwards of 20.
And actually, I think that's a good behavior thing we can talk about, too, is the kite's got some engineered dead spots in its flight characteristics for that high wind.
Yeah, we made sure that the kite has a dead spot, is what it's usually called. So when it's in a pancake towards you, it can actually fall, or the tail sometimes can fall under if you're not careful. If you don't have these bridles really, really taut, it will do that. But the point of it being kind of nebulous here is that when it gets up into those high winds, you can do those tazzes, multi-tazzes, weird slot machine combinations, kind of whatever you want. And you can just kind of have fun exploring that without, losing 30, 40 feet running forward like a madman. But yeah, so that can be something to be aware of, especially in low wind. But in high wind, especially because we don't have a vent, we do have a strong, which you'll see soon. We wanted to have something in there to kind of work with. But
cool. So the UL and Standard launched with Canvas.
With Canvas.
Which is coming up on 2 years this year.
Oh my God, is it? Yeah. Wow, we're old. Yeah.
So the next kite is the first new addition to the Crux line.
Yes.
Since the launch.
Yeah. Well, it's done, but it's not out. But yes. Yeah.
Cool.
So we'll go the other way. Here's our new baby. This is the SUL Crux. So super, super light frame. It's got 2 PTs all around.
Yeah, we weighed it this morning at 185 grams
Which is the first time we weighed it, so that was good. Radius F, which stands for feather, lower spreaders.
I didn't know that. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, loosened up the standoffs a little bit to a 2.5 mil. It has a full-length 100 spine. And that's kind of it. The upper spreader's 4 mil. And the thing that sets this apart from most of the other Cruxes, well, actually all of them, is that it has a 3-point bridle. The locations on the outhauls have been moved up underneath the spreader fitting. We don't want to put too much pressure on those 2 PTs for obvious reasons. Not that it's not durable, we just don't want to have everyone break them, when they're doing high impact stuff.
Which really is what this kite's about. So
yeah, so the in-haul is the same. All of these kind of areas by John, they're all done with a cutout and hot cut in certain places, so the in-haul will be left there. It actually pays off quite a bit in terms of getting the kite to transition onto its back. Pulling it from a lower place in the spine has paid off, especially when you don't have a lot of pressure in those low winds. But
the sail rate comes down really nicely just on its own. Just smaller nose, smaller mylar at the standoff.
Yeah, she's a bit wrinkly right now. We're out in the rain, sucking up some water. But yeah, it's got lighter leading edge material. The nose is decreased by 1.5 centimeters, 2 centimeters, somewhere in there. We do have the same kind of leech line set up. The tail's the same. The trailing edge, that kind of stuff is lighter. And the mylar, do you mind grabbing that Crux really quick? Well,
yeah,
one
definitely.
of the million.
Definitely.
So the mylar on the SUL is just this little tiny strip. It's actually going to be moved over in the production model.
Let's see if we can get both of these in the camera here.
Here's this little boop, and then this on the Crux goes over the whole thing. This is the standard, and there's straight stitches that kind of lock that down. So there's quite a bit taken off. But
very cool.
Yeah, this is the SUL. It's got 4.5-ish grams of weight, and that's locked on through a hollow ferrule. So probably 6 if you're counting that in there. But yeah, that's it. Should be released here pretty soon. Also sporting that radius carbon that is also in our SUL Spur. So
cool, and we'll definitely talk about that in a little bit. So last of the new Cruxes.
Yeah. So for something completely different, We're still messing with this just a little bit. This is a strong Crux. Our friend Robin, last year at Kite Party, really encouraged us to kind of dabble in higher wind kites, even though our kites do have a good high wind range.
And I've talked a little bit about on the channel about strong standards and where they sort of fit in the hierarchy. They're sort of in the same place as like a mid-vent, just extra mass, but a standard sail, so it'll throw itself around a little better.
Yep. Some differences on this, obviously the frame, the bridle's the same as the standard. The sail is the same. We do have the bouncy helical fiberglass standoffs. That helps kind of smooth things out. It also helps the kite dump wind. But they're also thick enough that when you are, pulling the bridle around in those kind of high-impact backward tricks, that the standoffs don't completely collapse. That's quite a bit of pressure to get those to fold. So we do have kind of a beefy standoff in there.
Because that's similar material to like the roll bars on a Benson.
Yeah, just a lot thicker. I think helical fiberglass is used in car antennas, but I could be wrong. So that's the kind of material. It's seen on a lot of kites, but yeah, that's it. Just a lot more mass.
And that's 3Xs and 7 PTs?
Currently, yes. There was a draft that was 5 PT, 3X, nitro, and a 400 spine. Right now, we're at 3Xs all around and 7 PT lower spreaders. Not sure where it's going to end. Both of them show promise.
This one's a little further down this year.
Yeah, it's not, our highest thing on the list. The SUL Crux definitely took that priority because we did have to make sure the bridle was right for everybody, including ourselves. This sail is the one that you see on our website a lot. This was kind of the final prototype, and it has gone through many different frames, many different categories.
We'll see another sail like that in a minute when we get to the intentions too.
Mm-hmm. So this one was just kind of laying around, and when we were encouraged to do this from Robin, we just fit. Luckily, we had an extra sail, so this is where that is.
Cool. And if you want to know more about the Cruxes, for sure, head on over to their website. There's a whole document there that tells the story of the development of the kite that Devin wrote up.
Yep.
That's super, super cool. All their kites have that document, and you can kind of find the lineage of the kite, which is really nice. Not a lot of manufacturers talk about the actual development lineage like that. So, cool. All right, so we'll take a break here, and then we'll go look at some intentions.
Sure.
Cool.
Yeah, let's do it. All
right, so now we're going to get into the intention.
Yes.
So the intention is, would I be wrong in saying the intention is your favorite in the line?
You're not wrong. This is kind of my baby. This kite was very much influenced by a lot of lessons I had from an not old mentor, she still is a mentor, Elizabeth Frymouth, who's the principal horn in Cincinnati Symphony. She was always very honest with me about kind of how our end product on stage is very much like a reflection of how we work and how mindfully we work, how efficiently, etc. So I wanted to kind of make a kite that was influenced by that. And she always used this idea of channeling like our work and our nerves into intent, which is a tattoo on my arm, actually. So that was the name of the kite before it actually was even done.
And some of the prototypes stem off that, I know, because every once in a while someone will hear about the intended.
Yeah. So there are quite a few intendeds. Just as we were trying to figure out the shape that we wanted. Again, all of these stories will be on kind of that origin story. It's on a PDF on the intention page. One of them turned into a team kite.
Turning into.
Yeah. Every time you hear us or someone that kind of knows what's going on with the CKD lineage say intended, it basically means a screwed up intention or something on the way to the final product. This being the final product.
And it's sort of an aside because we just sort of mentioned that the team kite's out there and we're showing some of the new kites in the line.
They want to see your face.
Yeah, they don't. How many kites are you guys working on? Just rough estimate at any given time. We're going to go with a lot.
9.
So
SUL strong, SUL strong. Budget, Frank.
Oh, we get to talk about Frank. We get to talk about Frank a little later too. Frank's fun.
Yeah. So anyways, this was the focus, though. When we launched CKD, we were not obviously doing 9 things at a time. Kind of all of the work, maybe too much of the work, went into this, with it kind of being the flagship. I think for good reason. CKD's mission statement is very much kind of geared towards generating kites that produce that will and the drive to learn. So to have something that, frankly might be a little bitter and kick you and say, well, that could have been better. I think it's a good thing. It's invaluable feedback if you want to learn that way.
But this kite's much more gentle than that. Like, yeah, it's demanding, but
it's not going to like take a cleat and step on your face. But
that's the Crux.
Yeah, the Crux will do that.
The little backstabber.
But this is very much the teacher. Again, influenced by what I think is one of the best teachers and people in the world. But yeah, this is it. It's kind of geared towards really everything, as much as we could. Has a very deep backflip, higher aspect. It's good in roll-ups. The toe points on the kite do sit very low, so you're going to feel a lot of that like bulk of the sail down here. Of course, you can adjust the drive. With
that was actually the first thing that surprised me when I got mine, and so my sails are pretty early. They're 9 and 10, I think.
Yeah, they're digits.
The first thing that really surprised me when I got on the lines was how nose back it lays compared to where I had started with kites 30 years ago, and just really positive on the line because of it.
Yeah, that's something that I learned very slowly from Chris Goff and Tim Benson's Supernova, this idea of taking those toe points and really dropping them down. I guess you could say it's kind of similar to like a French bridle on a quad. Where you're really connecting with like this bulk of the kite versus, having them higher and getting this more immediate drive, but you're kind of flying by this kind of what I call kind of that spongy, lighter touch versus flying by mass and connecting with this. So to some, these kites that are kind of lower based might feel kind of driveless or dead. But it's kind of just a style you get used to.
It's very solid. It's not. It lets you know it's out on the end of the line.
Yeah, call me biased, but I think it's solid.
No.
Admittedly, and for those of you who know me, I wouldn't say that if I didn't believe it. But yeah, I kind of had to go through this idea of, where did I learn the most? Where do I think other people could learn if they want to? It was kind of it was like holding a mirror up to myself before I figured out where we wanted to go with it, and I had to drag poor John through all of it.
And the shape, I know you guys went through a lot of work. The shape's pretty incredible. I don't know if it comes through well on camera, how compound all the shape is. There's a lot of shape to the keel and spine, a lot of shape to the leading edge.
The bottom half of the leading edge, well, kind of. It kind of starts right here. I don't know if this is in the camera. The bottom of this down here, there's really only the curve is down here. This is actually dead straight.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like it because the nose is being sucked in by the upper spreader. But yeah, I think something that is not talked about enough on this kite, admittedly we don't talk about it either, is this has the opposite of an active leech line. It's solid. It's held together by a Rokaku bead. It's probably hard to see black on black. But the broad seaming in the spine is generous, to say the least. So if the flyer is trying to work on, I don't know, flat spins or something like that, well, broad seaming is very much an asset towards learning flat spins. And the way that we've placed this peak of the broad seam, you can actually tighten this leech line with the Rokaku bead, and it bends the spine even more, and it actually helps you kind of navigate flat spins a little bit better. That could also be an asset in higher winds, but you're also tightening up the trailing edge, so you're kind of losing that speed control.
So, and you guys are both really inland, so the kite also flies really well in bumpy winds and down low, which makes the next one really interesting because it's the ultralight, and there is something new coming below it. There is an SUL, but it's a very capable light ultralight.
Yeah. So this is the ultralight. The sail is exactly the same as the standard. A little bit of differences. Obviously the framing, the bridle is exactly the same.
So we're nitros in the standard nitro lights.
Nitro lights here. We did just put our heads together. We have found a way to use nitro lights efficiently in the spreaders. and a 100 spine, so that might be an option down the road if you want one or the other. Stock is nitro lights here, a 200 spine, 5 PTs in the lower spreaders. Nitro lights were just a little bit too high on the breakage category for us. 3 PTs were too bouncy. Obviously, we're not going to use nitros because that's in the standard, and they're a little bit too stiff. So we kind of had to go with 5 PTs. We did experiment with the Avia Betweenie through Goodwin's for a while, and we liked that.
It's a really nice stick. You guys sent me a set to play with, and it definitely has a really nice sort of stiffness on that lower spreader.
Yeah, the only issue with them is that they fit too snugly into the tee because the ferrule's a little bit big.
Right.
It was just kind of something we really liked it, but then there was kind of that idea of, well, is it going to fit? Is it not going to fit? Is it worth it?
Right.
They're a little snug on those TAPAs, which this kite does not have because this has the nitro lights in it. So ultimately, we did decide to put those down. This is an ultralight with that nitro light frame that we might offer. We do have the other option here for Kite Party, but this is it. If anyone thinks this sail is familiar, this was the one on the cover of AKA.
That's right, this was on
which
kiting.
Is wild. We did not know that was coming, but that's it. That's kind of what you're going to get with everything. The idea of the intention is not to create a kite that's super, super light to fly in light winds. It's more of something that is very stiff, and we wanted it to hold its form so it could keep the wind where the wind is, and kind of generate that lift that way. Also, the bridle is really connected with that bottom half, that bigger mass of the kite.
So, So with that kind of in mind, let's look at the one that is made to be really, really light.
Yeah.
So this is new in development for this year, and there's a few new things to the Canvas line in this kite.
So this is our new baby.
So
this probably looks a little different.
I mean, the nice thing is it still looks like an Intention.
Yeah, so we've combined a lot of panels, actually.
And you can see it. I don't know if I can get both of the wings into the picture here, but you can see where the panels come from with the two kites next to each other.
Yeah, so these two here, the blue and the green up where Jesse's chin is, have been combined into this. This is a grape panel. The upper two, if we want to slide this just a little bit over here, these two panels have been combined up here. Let's see, we have 2 panels here that have been combined in this silver panel, and actually 3 on the wing have been combined down here. And then lastly, down by the CKD tag, the big white middle panel and the black have been combined into one big panel here. The last big change is this panel in the middle that some people call the eye. That panel usually stops about down here, and we've just taken the triangle and just kind of extended it out literally to the stopper. So it has all the flavors of the Intention.
And the same refinements as the other SUL we saw earlier: smaller nose, lighter leading edge, reduced mylar. I know this one is a pretty special prototype because it's actually a silver label, which we'll talk about silver labels with the 5th Intention we're going to see here at the end.
So, that's really it. The biggest change really in this kite is that we've started to incorporate aero stuff into the line,
which is exciting.
It's very exciting. It's a full blue all around, and it's got a 100 spine
and 4 mil on the upper.
4 mil upper and 2.5 standoffs, which is exciting. This bridle is, you probably can see all the knots in it.
So very much a test bridle. Yeah, very much a test bridle.
It's been compressed a little bit, and we actually brought those toe points up just a teeny little bit to the point, you are staying in contact with that bulk of the sail, but the toe point is up just a little bit. Sometimes that can be associated with more immediate drive. So for those flyers that maybe are not used to or don't prefer that flying from the bulk of the sail, it's kind of a bit more of that middle ground, which is, I think, nice in terms of its versatility, and it's also kind of our way of saying, like, all right, we see you, we'll meet you in the middle. It is an expensive kite, right? Like, with a full arrow.
And, I mean, the UL Intention flies very low to begin with, so this is a really specialty item for getting down to the bottom of the barrel of wind, like half a mile an hour, 1 mile an hour. We're hoping.
We're hoping. we've tried a lot of different combinations.
Yeah, I mean, I remember flying a prototype of this kite last year at Kite Party.
Yeah, it's gone through quite a few
which
iterations.
I think was 3 sales ago on the SUL development.
Yeah, about 3. Yeah, and ultimately we decided it does need to be kind of cleaned up a little bit in terms of how things are grouped together. This sail is actually 1.5 ounces lighter than the other 2. And even that's lighter than
a lot in just
kites.
Fabric.
Yeah, so we have high hopes for it. Obviously, we'll keep you posted. We're pretty active on all this stuff.
This one's down the road this year.
Down the road, but absolutely a priority.
Yeah,
and it's pretty.
It's really pretty. The extinct purples and that plum and grape really work well together. Yeah, Devin's in love with that. And interestingly, this is another prototype getting closer.
Yeah,
and this sail is actually the one we flew as an SUL last year at Kite Party.
Yeah, not our brightest idea, but we did just need a sail to see what would happen. This is the vent. It is done. It's in its final form. We spent, I don't want to tell you how many times and how many sails, cutting up different things to make sure that the vents are in exactly the right place.
And there's not a lot of mesh in this kite.
Yeah, so that's the feedback we've received a lot until people have flown it.
Which I will add to saying there's not a lot of mesh, that I did get to spend time with this kite last October.
Yeah.
And I flew it in the low 20s, and it didn't feel any different than my normal standard intention in the teens.
That's kind of that's the dream of every event, right? So basically what we did with this is we tried to figure out, by standing behind it in really high winds with the current bridle setting, we're just pushing on the sail and being like, all right, where do we feel pressure? Well, we felt pressure in a lot of places because it's high wind. And ultimately, we found a bunch of sweet spots, but those sweet spots might not have been as sweet tricking or maintaining its original intended, no pun intended, again, oh God, no pun intended on that too, whatever, characteristics. So we had to keep searching, and I'm glad we did. We actually almost called it quits on the last one, saying okay, this one's good. Which is, it's always how that works, right? You think you're done, and you're like, all right, I'm over it. And then I always get my kiting ideas in the shower, and I got an idea, and it worked. So John has been gracious enough to cut up this sail. This is actually, if you ever see our promotion sails.
This was the final, prototype,
this was the final. If you see any pictures of an intention in front of an airplane on our promotion for Black Friday sales with our original logo, it's this sail. We've obviously cut it up a little bit. I burned a hole through it. Sorry.
Yeah, it's a little patch down the middle of the spine there.
Right. It's just kind of like the Strong Crux. We're using a full set of helical standoffs, helical fiberglass at 3.2 mil.
And that active leading edge shows up again. Leech line shows up again.
Yeah, we do have an active leech line. The frame has changed drastically. We're using APAs instead of TAPAs on the top. For those of you who don't know, TAPA is tiny APA. So this is a full size. It's a 6 millimeter pultruded upper spreader instead of 5.5 on the standard. The spine is a hybrid. It's a 7 PT ferruled to a 400, which is
beefy.
Yeah. The spreaders have moved, if we're talking from the standard, have moved from nitro to 7 PT, so you lose a little bit on the outer diameter, but you gain a lot in weight.
Because the taper rate's a little different.
A little bit different. You gain a lot in weight. Little bit more flexible, but you also want the kite to cup and flex with the wind. We do. It's not the goal for everyone.
I mean, I flew before the active leech line, but I gotta say it was top 3 vents I've ever flown and 30 years of flying dual line kites. So
thanks. Yeah. The only other difference in this is the leading edges. We have nitro strongs in it, and we are happy with it. We're excited about it.
So that's a coming soon.
That is a coming soon. We actually have the templates done. The vents are included in those templates. We're all good to go.
Awesome. So let's grab the last intention we're going to talk about, which is really special.
Shiny.
So these are... this one is Devin's personal kite. Right now there are only...
Hold on, it's up against a wall.
So there's only one of these out that has been sold, and there's one Crux. These are the silver labels, and they are limited release, and they feature...
Well, this isn't limited release. This is an experiment,
Right.
if we're being honest.
So they feature Prismatex.
They do. Shiny.
Which is, if anybody hasn't seen it before, and I don't know how much it'll show on camera.
It won't.
But it's a holographic Mylar that's been out of production for a number of years, and you guys stumbled on a very little bit that that's giving you the ability to offer these kind of special versions.
Yeah, so it's, as kind of what Jesse was saying, you stick it in the sunlight, it lights up like a crazy rainbow. I harassed John drastically about pinstriping, so this is actually pinstriped in grape because I'm a gaudy queen, I guess. I don't know. You can call me what you want. I promise you I've been called worse. This is an ultralight. Essentially, what we were doing with this is just we were sticking Prismatex in the bulk of the kite, and we were trying to figure out where it was going to wear. It does not fly like an ultralight because most of it is, bulky and shiny.
Yeah, the sail has a bit more heft to it for sure, just because of the extra Mylar. But it also probably picks up a lot more wind with the Mylar.
It does. I mean, the way the trailing edge vibrates is drastically different.
A little noisier?
Yeah, kind of dull, if we're being honest. But yeah, when we were just doing that, we wanted to put Prismatex kind of all over the bottom of the kite with that tight leech line to, frankly, would see what would happen to it.
Cool. So these come out on kind of special occasions, sort of one at a time.
Whenever our grumpy sail maker wants to make them is when they come out.
So
and then he's not grumpy because he deals with shiny stuff.
So definitely keep an eye out on social media channels and on their website because these are very limited and turn into a bit of a race to get them in the cart and get them checked out.
Yeah.
So cool. Hang tight. We're going to switch kites and move stuff around on the tiny little patio, and we will talk about spurs.
Oh, hell. Yeah, there's another one. All
right. So you may notice this is part 2 of the tour of Canvas Kite Designs line, and we've changed clothing, and it is not raining anymore. So it's Saturday now of Kite Party. Yesterday, while we were doing that, the rain picked up, and we kind of stopped and decided we'd pick up again. So, with that, Devin is still here, and we're going to talk about the Cruxes and Frank, which is a new kite for them this year, and then some of the stuff that's upcoming. So we'll get right into it with the Cruxes.
They're not Cruxes, but yes.
Sorry, Spurs. Spurs.
I definitely just let him deal with that one. It was fine.
That's fine. It's the Spur. We talked about the Cruxes first.
Oh, Cruxies. Spurs.
These are Spurs. So
ones.
This one grew out of a previous project with Skyburner for you.
Yeah, well, so it started kind of by myself. I wanted to build kind of this urban, just fun kite in COVID, and originally that one was called Scope. This kind of came out of that. And then, John and I had kind of agreed to partner up, and John was going to sell the sails, and they were released through Skyburner, which then kind of turned into this hybrid launch of, the Spur, obviously, and then the X tubes. They're the new series of SkyShark X tubes. So when Canvas launched, we kind of souped them up a little bit, put some tapered spreaders in there, refined the balance points, the bridles, stuff like that. So this is the Spur SE. It is the same sail as the Skyburner, top to bottom, and it can be retrofitted. So if you do have a Skyburner Spur and you want them retrofitted, feel free to send it to John, or we can send you the specs. It will involve a little bit of hot cutting just around here and up at the cutouts. But yeah, that's it. So this is the ultralight. These are white labels. We haven't talked about that. A white label on our kites represents any kind of discontinued fabric, a different kind of setup, that it has to be approved by John and I. We talk about it with you maybe too thoroughly just to make sure it's right, and it also represents kind of the main character of what
this one in particular is white label because of the Reuben wingtips, which as anybody who's watched the videos on my channel before knows I'm really quite fond of. Mm-hmm. Devin might not get away with this kite. This one might sneak into my bag if he's not paying attention.
Mine. But yeah, this is it. This actually is very much kind of like our stock color, except for the wingtip change. So this is the ultralight, just like we were talking about in part 1. Any ultralight kite from Canvas will have this fluorescent yellow bridle line at 150 pound. The standards will have red. So that's kind of how you distinguish them. Another distinguishing factor on these kites versus our others is that this ultralight uses the lighter leading edge fabric. So yeah, we got P90s in the leading edge, top and bottom. We have a 100 spine down here. There's our same internal tail weight, 3 PT spreaders, 3 mil carbon in the standoffs, 5 mil in the uppers, and straight 3-point bridle all around.
Cool. So standard next, I think.
Standard.
Yeah? Cool. Move this guy out of the way.
So this is kind of our trial standard. Mine is currently on loan, just to a good friend. Yeah, standard spur, nothing crazy here. Mine is a white label. It actually uses plum in the wings. This is not. It just uses the stock purple.
This is a really good looking kite too, though.
Same kind of thing. Again, this bridle line will represent the standard or a strong or a vented model, that 200-pound red bridle line. We got 100s in the leading edges, your 5 PT spreaders, 5.5 upper spreader, 2X spine. Yeah, and that's it. Same kind of deal. The 3-point bridle is a little bit more open to not compress the frame as much. The spur bridles use kind of this opened up concept between the SUL, which has a tiny, tiny, tiny bridle, and as you move up into the strong, the bridle gets bigger to kind of give a little bit more play and stress the frame less. So that's it. Nothing crazy on that one. Stock standard.
So the next two are the newest of the family. They've come out in the last few months.
Yes. That's also a lawnmower. So,
that is indeed a lawnmower.
Sorry that you have to deal with a lawnmower. So we'll make this quick. This is our new baby. She's a little crinkly right now. She's been out in the wet. This is an SUL spur. Using all the lightest stuff, we have actually reduced the nose material by, I think, 1.5 centimeters to 2 centimeters. So lighter nose, smaller, all your light stuff here. The trailing edge is incredibly light. Again, the smaller 3-point bridle. The biggest factor on this one is that the upper spreader is bridle line. And that's it. We are using the new line of carbon radius in this kite for the lower spreaders. The rest is 2P all around. Yeah, it's a great agile little kite that, we'll do a 1-pop roll up and kind of whatever you ask with no tail weight.
Yeah.
Probably because there's no upper spreader.
A little smaller yo-yo stopper too, which takes a little getting used to, but in the light wind, it's not so bad.
Yeah.
And if you saw my kite bag tour video that came out this past week, I also talked a little bit about how light this kite actually is. I'm kind of a big proponent of it doesn't matter what the SUL weighs as long as it flies like an SUL.
Yeah.
But these are really light.
They are. Yeah, just a nice little light guy. This is also a white label. The blue, it can look like teal depending on the light, but this is Caribbean.
Yeah.
So this is kind of the new baby. Even lighter bridle line on this. We had some laying around. It's just 100-pound line, so this one is
very
black
cool.
bridle line. But yeah, same thing, same setup, whole 9 yards.
Which brings us to the strong.
Yeah, so this thing is basically a giant rock / throwing star. It takes the standard model and just soups everything up. So you go your 5 PT spreaders to your 7s, the 100s. We're now using 2 X's in the wings. We got a 300 spine. The standoffs are still 3 mil. We're actually using a 200 or a 2X upper spreader. Yeah, other than that, I mean, just with that bigger bridle, that's kind of stock. I think a distinguishing factor on the strong is that we only have 2 knots for angle of attack up here. Other than that, it's the same stuff. Same sail.
It's got some mass to it. It likes to throw like bonus rotations in.
Yeah, I mean these 7 PTs cut to such a short length they're going to be pretty solid. But it can be fun to just have something to kind of lay into. Maybe on a day where you're really frustrated, or you just want something that bounces around pretty quick and is also quite robust. So that's that. This also uses the Caribbean blue. It matches the super ultralight. So again, this is the white label for the discontinued fabric. Yeah,
this is another really good-looking kite.
Yeah, we like it. This is kind of the laugh riot of the line.
It really is. It you can just kind of toss it around and it just sort of does things.
Correct. So yeah, these are the wild childs, but that's the whole spur line. We like them. We hope you do too.
Cool. So the new kite for this year. So this is Frank.
Frank.
We've been talking about Frank. Like, Frank's been a little bit on the internet for probably close to a year now.
Yeah. Frank's a good guy. We like him. Frank is going to be coming out in a couple versions.
Pick him up so you can try to see all of him for a sec, but then I'm going to put him down again because Frank is a big boy.
He is.
Frank's all grown up.
So this Frank is one that we intend on wholesaling. It uses the Skyshark Camo 2Xs. In the leading edges, all of them are full length. The idea of that is that those tubes are a little less expensive, but they're also that same really high quality Skyshark carbon. So, we obviously want to use them wholesale for that reason. And also, if you want to get a kite and, you break something, they also cost less to replace, which is great. Your solid Skyshark 5 PTs and the lower spreaders, 3 mil standoffs, the whole 9 yards. Essentially, this kite is kind of the slow it down and see what's going on kind of kite. It is fully trick capable. Maybe not so much in the one pop category, depending on.
And correct me if I'm wrong. First turbo bridle for Canvas.
Not this one.
No. Okay.
So the wholesale one is actually it's a small reverse turbo.
Okay.
Very small. The other Frank, we've kind of dabbled with. We're thinking about Frank the Tank, but that's also kind of a name that's trademarked, but a joking name. That one is currently being fit in all 7 PTs Nitro Strongs. And it does utilize actually a turbo bridle, kind of harkening back to, those the Widowmaker early Nirvana days. That kind of feel to make sure that those pilots that really resonate with that also have something in our line.
I got to fly a test version of that on Thursday this past week, and boy, it's precise.
Yeah, it's precise.
It's different than the rest of the line. It took a minute to sort of like, oh, I remember this, but it was really enjoyable, and once you kind of found it, it was definitely a canvas.
Yeah, we wanted something a little different, and also something to, again, make sure that other kind of era of flyers was seen, but also kind of pushed into maybe a new shape or new feel, but also has that somewhat familiar home base. Again, this is the wholesale version, so it's not the turbo bridle.
Right.
But yeah, so that's kind of where we're going. We want to release them in multiple different models. Those are done, but we are making sure that the standard is really right.
So Frank and an ultralight Frank, look for them at your local kite shop?
Frank standard for now. The ultralight Frank, you flew at LDI.
Yes. Yep. We got to meet ultralight Frank in October of last year.
Yes. So, and ultimately, this is something, you've talked about it on your channel a lot. For flyers that are looking into getting into kites at maybe a higher price point, weight is not so much an issue when it comes to low wind. Think about how big the sail is, the bridling and where it comes in contact with the sail. How it performs in low wind is ultimately your tell, right? There's a reason why, a 7 PT mask is also incredibly versatile at the low end. It holds its form, it's very solid, it grabs wind well, it's huge. This is no exception. So just keep that in mind, not just on Frank, but on everything. It's definitely something that can influence your purchases and maybe how you approach kites for the first time. And that's also kind of why we wanted Frank to be the way he was. A bit slow, a bit bold, maybe turn some heads, get you thinking in a little bit of a different way. So
for sure.
In kite shop form. So
in kite shop form, which is really cool.
We like that.
So
goodbye, Frank.
We'll put Frank aside, and then so you guys have a few other projects in the works right now.
We do.
So future stuff to be on the lookout for from Canvas.
Yeah, we have codename Beans, Frank and Beans.
Well, you have to have Frank with Beans.
Frank's name was actually kind of an accident. We nicknamed it, and it was like nicknaming a pet that you pick up on the side of the road, and then you're stuck with it. People started asking how he was, and we're like, crap. So Frank was Frank.
Frank is Frank.
Beans is kind of the antithesis of Frank, quite small, very, very tricky. We're thinking about trying it in nylon as well, trying to keep the performance up but the price point down.
That'll be really cool.
We're not going to sacrifice anything with that. Again, it's very much in experimental phases. There is a budget light wind kite that we are thinking about getting mass produced. Again, it has to meet exceptional performance standards, versatility standards, quality standards. That's on the table, literally. Not something that we're going to rush. We don't want to overlook anything, especially if it's going out to the masses, literally. We don't want to give anyone a bad experience. So there's that. Did I miss one?
I think the one I'm most excited for is the beginner kite.
Oh, yeah.
Because
God,
it's been a while since we've seen a new beginner kite that was like actually a step forward for beginner kites that could actually do some stuff.
I mean, ultimately, like, you know, all kites are going to do something.
For sure.
The biggest kind of shtick that I wanted, and I talked to John about it, we thought it was nuts at first, was a kite that actually excels on its back, which you'd think is not an asset for a beginner kite, but I kind of got thinking about it, and it's very easy to knock a kite out of the sky when you're a beginner, and then sometimes it just wraps around its tip, and then, you know, you're in a mess, and you're on the ground. So I went pretty hard on thinking about the geometry and the characteristics of the kite to make it almost resort to being on its back. So instead of getting like a wing wrap and falling out of the sky or crashing, you are in a backflip, which is one of the first tricks you learn, really, whether you intend to or not.
Right.
So having it default there.
But so many beginner kites get stuck on their back because they're based on much older design shapes.
Or they fall out, which is fine. But yeah, I don't know, we kind of used that quirk as an asset, and it's paid off. It's kind of a fun little bird. There's room to add weight and all that, but who knows if that's going to end up in the final design. Right now, it's just fun. That characteristic has stayed true through multiple different shapes of resorting to its back, which I think is good. And it's small enough, it comes out of its back, you're not going to get stuck. And you're going to learn, whether you try to or not, you're going to learn some kind of orientation that will start you into tricks, should you go that way. So yeah, it's a different take. Again, something we're not rushing, but we're having fun with it.
That's super cool. That's super cool. Devin, thank you for spending time with me and with the subscribers. And now we're going to go fly some kites because it's Kite Party and we've done work. So
we
now
might
it's
need
time.
a poncho, but yeah.
Yeah, Icarus dries. It'll be fine.
Yeah, that's true.
So
all right, we're going to go get wet and have fun.
Thanks for tuning in and watching, and hopefully you enjoyed this sort of look at Canvas and what's coming from them. And we'll see you on the next one.
Thanks, friends.